Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to another episode of Be the CEO of Your Own Life. I'm Olga, your host, and today we're going to talk about introverts. Raise your hand if you're an introvert. Mine is not up. This is why I'm so excited that I have Heidi here, who is a confidence coach for introvert women specifically.
Yes.
And she is going to walk us through, as I ask questions, on how do you socialize as an introvert? Because let's face it, we still have to socialize, but it is draining or it is taxing on yourself. And so I really wanted to pick Heidi's brain to just get into how do you live your life being an introvert that might have to socialize. I was telling her before we started recording, I have a lovely client of mine who would identify as an introvert herself, but also has a very public job that forces her to public speak or just go to a lot of diplomatic meetings, and it could be anxiety provoking and also draining. So this episode is for you, my friend, and anybody else who in here thinks is an introvert and feels really anxious about time to socialize. So what else can I say? Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more and then we get started.
Yes, that'd be amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. It's early where I'm at. I've got my cat by my side, my cup of tea, and I'm ready to talk. So my name is Heidi. I'm a confidence coach for introverted women. And I call myself a holistic life coach because my background is in yoga and Ayurveda and mindset coaching. And so I bring all of this perspective to play when we're looking at what it means to be an introvert and an empowered introvert in work, in relationships, and really in just in life in general, and creating the life that you love.
Oh, I love it. Will you say you're an introvert yourself?
Yes.
So you're speaking from personal experience as well as your own professional experience.
Oh, completely. Everything that I share with my clients is something that I've experienced and used myself. So yeah, I connect with their experience.
Do you want to tell us where in the world you are?
I'm in Alaska. Yeah, I'm up in Anchorage, Alaska, and we've got lots of snow and cold sunshine. It's really beautiful today.
Yay. So what is our time difference right now? What time is it?
We are 1 hour behind the West Coast. So it's 8 in the morning here.
Oh yeah, I got you bright and early then. Well, welcome to the podcast. I am very excited to dive into this subject. I am fascinated by just allowing people to just see themselves in the different episodes. And I think that we're going to be tapping into the subject of confidence from the perspective of an introvert. What is the biggest obstacle that an introvert faces with relation to their confidence? What do you see comes up that eats away at their confidence?
The biggest thing is it comes from our culture, because our culture values the characteristics of extroverts. So it looks at people who are more relaxed and outgoing in social situations as being, more valuable than someone who's not. And we end up actually internalizing that into the way that we see ourselves and how we value ourselves so often. So that right there, and that, it doesn't come from us, right? We never really chose that identity. It's just we grew up in it. So we don't often see that it is a choice or an identity that's been placed on us. So really the biggest thing with confidence, from that perspective, is separating out your own value and appreciating what you bring to the table, because introverts bring so much to the table, but you often have to have this moment where you decide to see it and decide to appreciate it.
So what you're saying is that because our community values so much the person who's outspoken and easily butterflies the room, so to speak, that the introvert grows up thinking oh, I have to be like that. That's the desired skill to have. and that conflicts with who they are authentically. Is that where their maybe social anxiety is born? Like that they feel that they have to perform at a level that it's not their level?
That is part of it, yeah, because internally they're always comparing or trying to be someone that maybe they're not. Maybe part of them can be kind of extroverted at sometimes, but there's just this constant conflict. But there's also a very real side to the anxiety of like your nervous system is in a place where it's reacting. It is feeling stress. So introverts they tend to have more sensitive nervous systems, which they can be more sensitive to stimulation, to loud noises, to lots of people. And that is more of a biological characteristic.
Right. So because they're hypersensitive to some of these, the context, their nervous system actually gets activated as though this isn't safe. It doesn't feel good for ourselves. So then the anxiety arises as a natural way of like, come back to safety.
Yeah.
And then that paired with their thinking of like, but I should be social. I should want to feel safe here. Just creates some sort of mental conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the good news is that when you understand this, that there's things that you can do to make it easier and feel more safe and to feel more accepting and appreciative of yourself, that can make the experience just easier.
We're going to dive into those things. But first, I want to ask you, how could a person begin to differentiate, if they need to, if you think that matters, that this is just me being an extrovert versus me having social anxiety?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Anytime we have a definition like social anxiety, it's like there's like it's not like a black and white switch. Mm-hmm. There's definitely like a gradation, and it's the term itself is even a reflection of our value of the extrovert personality in social situations. Like it's not normal to be nervous in social situations. Mm-hmm. So I always want to be careful of that we're not like placing a quote, diagnosis on ourselves that really doesn't serve us. So but like just noticing in terms of like stopping and pausing and noticing how you feel in your body to see if you are stressed. And I think that is the best place to start without needing to put labels on you, and notice, okay, I'm feeling stressed in this situation. And from that, if you're in the moment, you can do things to help to calm your stress in the moment. And then you can also know that, oh, hey, I feel stressed in these situations, so I'm going to do things ahead of time to help to reduce the stress. And you can do things in the mind. You can do things for the physical body that can help that. Okay.
Love it. So we will dive into those. The inner conversation, the inner chatter that happens, I would argue that I'm an extrovert and I will still have some of this inner chatter going on regardless of like, did I say the right thing? Was that the right thing to say?
Yeah.
Did I say too much? That's normally my question.
It's a human thing. I think we all do it.
Yes. I'm thinking of my clients who are introverts. I think that's a bit more noticeable in them, that they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fit in. Like they feel like they almost need to have a script ahead of time to then feel like to lessen that anxiety. But of course, you can never really prevent what kind of conversations are going to spontaneously happen. So they're still going to be in a scenario where they talk, but then they take that home and then just overthink that scenario over and over and over. Yeah. Do you also have is this normal to the extrovert? Is this something that it's common in the extrovert?
So in the introvert or
introvert. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Overthinking is like one of the things that we do best.
It's a skill, comes with the job. Okay.
Totally. And we're really good at it. And it causes us so much suffering. Yes. And I think like with introvert, I actually had a conversation with an introvert the other day. And it was a very deep coaching conversation. And we got down to like where he was saying how he also can feel self-doubt and whatnot, but the manifestation is so different, where like there's like this overcompensation that happens with the extrovert, whereas the introvert tends to want to remove themselves from the situation. So yeah, the overthinking, it's a very common thing that we do. And there's so much that you can do to help to support yourself, to do it less, to turn it down, to allow it to be there. This is where a lot of our coaching mindset skills come in, is like being able to notice that it's happening and not identify with it in a way that makes you feel even more anxious or insecure about being in social situations or about who you are. In yoga, we see this as like the whole practice of yoga is designed to help us turn the volume down and eventually just like really see as separate the thoughts. And so it's like this is a human thing that we have. It is a human cause of suffering. In yoga, it's considered like the main cause of suffering is thinking. So
That's a really good way to put it. Okay, let's dive in. So we have introverts listening and they're like, tell me, how do I prepare for those scenarios? How do I get out of it when I'm in it? And like, I think we've answered the why this happens to me. That's one of my most common questions with my clients. Why do I do this? I'm like, I always say it doesn't matter the why so much as to what we're going to do about it. Because the why, in my opinion, never really answers the problem. Like once you've identified, I've got a problem here, getting like, why did I get here? In my opinion, you might disagree and I'll let you say that piece. But in my opinion, getting to the why I feel anxious or I feel this way, it's never giving me an answer that I'm like, oh, okay, problem solved. I know the why, so problem solved. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. Even if I get to the specific why, I might grow my understanding, but doesn't solve the problem. So I'm a big fan of now what? I've got this situation. Now what? What can I do? So do you want to walk us through what you normally walk your clients through to build that sense of confidence while being an introvert who feels uncomfortable in these settings, that they might have no option to opt out? They have to be in it.
Yeah. Look, like the first thing that we'd look at is how they're talking to themselves. Like when they're thinking about the meeting that's coming up on Friday, like, are they thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the worst thing ever. I'm so bad at this. I don't want to be there. So when we can identify that kind of thinking is going on, it's so helpful, because that right there is the beginning of reducing your confidence and creating self-doubt. So, and you can change that. There's thoughts they're just arising in your brain, and you can choose other ones. So that's the mindset coaching piece. But then thinking like more on a practical level, first of all, reducing your nervous system. What's the word?
Stimulant.
Like not resilience, the opposite of resilience. I'll think of it, but your tendency to get like stimulated. So looking at your day-to-day rhythm, and like, are you doing things that help your nervous system to calm down? Are there things that you're doing that make your nervous system be more reactive? That's the word. So like there might be some things like having a lot of coffee. I think a lot of us know that like that can make us feel more anxious. So finding little things like maybe we can have less coffee, or we're going to have tea that day, or we can do a yoga practice in the morning. So like things that will help our body feel safe before we even get to the meeting. And then having some protocols. So protocol is kind of like internal rules that you have that are that you can decide ahead of time so that you don't have to be in the moment trying, like, kind of stressed out and trying to figure out what to say. So for a meeting, that might mean having prepared like the core things that you want to, that you know that you want to communicate. And then if there are like habits to your meetings, like your boss tends to like ignore you when you raise your hand, or like your colleague tends to talk over you, ahead of time thinking how you want to respond to that. And it might be sometimes like introverts have a hard time sometimes in the moment finding what they want to say. So sometimes it's just like saying, hey, this, like, I have something else that I want to add. I'm going to digest this meeting and email you by the end of the day. So that is something that helps you to like show that you are engaged in the meeting, but then take your response into a format that's a little bit more safer and gives you time to really actually express yourself fully and communicate it.
So going back to that, I love that protocol because I think it's very concrete and allows you to just sort of run free with like, how would I want to respond to a meeting? Before, like, I also want to ask you physically, how can they prep if they're already stressed about it? So you said first thing is to pay attention to how you're talking. What are you telling yourself about the meeting? Is there any tool in there as to how to switch that around? I'm thinking an introvert might think like, I'm not good at this. I'm not going to know what to say. They begin to get anxious about getting anxious at the meeting, if that makes sense. And that starts draining their energy. So how will they, so this has happened to my clients where I will make the suggestion of having a different thought. And their response is, yes, but I don't believe that one. So what do you suggest then?
Yeah, well, finding something that is maybe not even about the meeting, but about themselves, like, helps to form a loving, supportive relationship with yourself of like, okay, I hate meetings. This is hard. And I know this is hard. Like, I recognize, and I am here for myself. Like, I hate meetings. I don't want to go to the meeting, and I'm strong enough to go, and I'll support myself through this no matter what. I'm here, like saying, hello, Heidi. Hello, Olga. I know this is hard. I am here.
And for those of you who are not seeing, she's got both of her palms open and she's placing one on top of the other, the other one on her chest, on the heart. And I personally do that every time somebody tells a story that is that makes me feel vulnerable. That's my go-to. Is like, I always place my hand to just show like, I feel you. And I think this is such a beautiful response to have with ourselves. Like, I'm here for you, palm on top of your heart. What a beautiful body, even language to add to the words. So I love that one because that I think everybody can believe. I'll be here for you. And I love the acknowledgement of this is hard versus resisting and thinking this should be easy for me. Why is this not easy for me? Which is, well, I'm sure you hear in coaching, we hear in coaching, right? Like, it's the shoulds. A should be able to be like Olga is. Like, look, she has such an easy time, or like my coworker next door. And then there is this complex that because you're less, you're more quiet, you're less outspoken, that you might also have this complex of nobody sees me, nobody notices me, I don't get valued and acknowledged. And every human wants to be valued and acknowledged.
And so when you have a practice like this, you were acknowledging yourself deeply, and that is the beginning of being seen. Like, that's really the core of it. I have a practice that I called the morning heart to heart, that is basically that. It's like just taking a few minutes to have a morning conversation with yourself, where you are holding yourself and acknowledging all of the challenges, and it's such a beautiful way to help you feel grounded and to nourish your self-talk, to cultivate this positive self-talk that helps support you through your whole day.
Morning heart to heart. Is this like a journaling, or what is it?
It's a worksheet. It's like a little meditation and worksheet where I have some suggested things that people can say, and then they can create their own. So they can use that in the morning.
Let's talk about routine. Is that important for the introverts in building their confidence?
Yes.
Predictability. I imagine that that's just grounding.
Yeah. Routine is really so in Ayurveda, we have these what's called doshas, where they're essentially like ways of understanding the energy that we feel. And self-doubt and anxiety, it's like we call it the vata or wind energy. It's just like moving in your head, totally ungrounded, like hurricane in the brain. And so routine is like anchors. And these anchors help to create groundedness and help to reduce the tendency towards anxiety. So, and the common anchors, of course, are like bedtime and meal times. And you can build rhythms around other things too. And so the more that you can kind of ground into the rhythms without being like stuck and, getting too old, just like the less that your body needs to adapt to change throughout the day. And so that creates on a biological level, just like less stress.
Oh, I love it. And I have gravitated myself towards routine as I get older and older, it feels more appealing. Whereas I used to fight this a bit before because maybe I had such a strict upbringing that I'm like, I want to make my own rules. I want to get up when I want to. And not just my upbringing. The work I had was very much like policy following, and anyway, so I was rebellious for a while, but then I've noticed exactly what you're saying, how in a sense of routine gives me a sense of groundingness that allows me to just knowing. I think that it brings certainty into your day, which is good. Out of curiosity, what are you strongly on? What's your dosha?
My dosha?
Yeah.
I'm a Pitta Vata. So, and the Vata, which is what I was just saying about the hurricane brain, like that's where I tend to go out of balance. So, I didn't like you, like when I was younger, I had no schedule. I would stay up super late, and I didn't realize until really these past few years when I got deeply into this work that I was chronically anxious. And
we don't notice. It's like your adrenaline to keep going. Like I can keep going. I've got energy for days. Look at me. Yeah,
it's normal, right? Yeah, we'll just like drink coffee at 10 p.m. and yeah,
it's insane today. So I'm the same. Pita Bata, but I think I'm probably stronger on the Bata than I am on the Pita. I don't know because I don't have the physical characteristics. We had a guest speaker, so hopefully this one comes after, where that's all we talked about.
Oh, cool.
Delicious, yeah. Okay, so routines are important. Let's talk about your, what did you call them? Protocols. So there's more than one protocol, I guess, like the meetings, the social activities, like
networking's a big one.
Networking, yes, for those like you have some business coaches in your practice. I have a diplomat, so she absolutely has to go to meetings and appear that she's having fun. So just walk us through like helpful maybe protocols. Like I want the people listening to this episode to maybe just live with something in hand that they can be like, you know what? I learned that routines are good. I'm going to make my own routine, but also protocol also sounds like a routine, the routine you will follow if we're going to that birthday party. Because let's be honest, if you're an introvert, even your own birthday party might feel like taxing and you might just want to have minimal people and you will still gravitate. I'm talking about one of my best friends, even on her birthday party, it was just her and I in the sofa. She didn't talk to anybody else. She's like, I can only handle one human at a time. So I'm just going to talk to you. Tell me, what do we give them?
So with those types of situations, it's nice to create minimal expectations for yourself of like, okay, I'm going to go to this networking event and all I need to do is have one-on-one conversation with one person. And the rest of the time it's okay. Like before that conversation that I'm just standing there in the corner by myself. Totally okay. I'm there. That's exactly what I'm there to do. That I have my conversation with that one person and then maybe I leave and that's done. Like mission accomplished. Maybe I stay. but having of something very specific like that, and then having a place to escape, usually the bathroom. So the bathroom is the best place for introverts. I've read in a book recently how a speaker would, he after he'd speak to lots of people, he'd go hide out in the bathroom to avoid seeing them afterwards and needing to talk to people.
Perfect.
I know.
He gave enough. He knew his limit. I'm giving up until I can. The rest will be taxing on myself. So no, I'm going to the bathroom for a while. It's going to take a while, people.
Yeah. And the bathroom, you can be on your phone, whatever you need to do, but I love using it as time to like check in with yourself. If you're feeling anxious, to do some breathing exercises, maybe do some yoga, and just make it like a nourishing moment that will restore you, so that then you can go out and do your next phase of whatever the event is.
I teach something in my reset program, which is taking a pause. Pause is part of the formula that I teach. And I teach it for many reasons. You can it's almost like stepping back and saying, hold on, let me just feel feelings, or you just felt the feelings. And the pause is to kind of think, what do I need? Kind of reconnect.
Yeah.
Like sending a text to yourself, how are you doing? And you have to answer that honestly and be like, how am I doing? Let me take a pause and think. So I just love this as an intervention of a pause. You might need to take a pause, maybe once, maybe several times in one evening, and normalize that. That's okay. You go to the bathroom as many times as you need to. I can totally see one of my clients say, what are they going to think? What are they going to think if I went to the bathroom 5 million times? Is this an introvert characteristic, being really preoccupied with how they're going to be perceived, given that society has always valued more the extrovert, and they may already have an internalized, like there's something wrong with me because I'm not? Will they be more sensitive to people's judgments? What's your take?
They can be. Yeah, definitely. And like, as they're like, because they tend to be like extroverts, they tend to be just like putting information out there. And sometimes regardless of how it's being received, introverts can be very keyed into how like people are responding. And that's another way that like our nervous system is trying to stay safe and like, okay, like, do I belong here? It's always looking for that answer. And and that's oftentimes when we are already feeling stress, that intensifies because our brain goes into this more survival mode. So one of the best things you can do is to calm the nervous system and have that moment with yourself of allowing it, like, yeah, this, maybe they are judging me, and this is hard, but I'm taking care of myself right now. Like, this is what I need for me, and finding ways to like let what you need be okay. Because essentially, like in the long run, like the more that you can support yourself to feel good and okay, just like that's how you want to be in the world, versus not supporting yourself and always feeling overwhelmed, so, and sometimes like other people might have opinions about it, like, and that's, we can't necessarily control that, but the more that you are yourself and your introvert self, like in the long run, like that's where you want to be, right? You want to be your authentic self.
And so from that, it also sounds like the more important it becomes to take that bathroom break, because then that's you taking care of your needs, lowering the stress levels that then would allow you to just think with more clarity that their judgment is their judgment, but you're taking care of yourself. That becomes easier to do in a less stress state.
I like to think of it as like a bubble. Like, you're creating this bubble of safety around yourself, and like you're out in your networking event and the bubble's starting to like, and you need to go to the bathroom and replenish it. And like, okay, like everyone's out there with their thoughts and feelings. I'm in here, right? And so just creating that safety, then going back out.
And at that point, will they check in with their thinking as well? How is my thinking going?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Noticing if they're starting to move back into that self-judgment, into that shaming, and just acknowledge it. And access what else is available. If they're able to change their thoughts to something more empowering, that's awesome, or just like supporting themselves, connecting with themselves.
What else can they do during the stressful times when they're in the meeting? Often, in my opinion, coaching experience, they stay quiet throughout, but that's also like torturing them because they're painfully aware that they're not saying anything. And so that's stressful, and maybe you can't get out. Maybe you're at a meeting, a board meeting, I don't know, and you're in it, and you're like, shit, I can't get out of here. Do you have any suggestions then for those meetings that are more like claustrophobic that you can't really?
Yeah. So deep belly breaths, first of all, it's like you want to, because oftentimes your breath will start to get short. When you have your breath in your belly, that's telling your nervous system that you're safe. It helps to calm things down. Making sure your feet are on the ground, and even just like spending a few moments like imagining like your feet like in mud. So we're trying to ground that energy here. Another thing that you can do is tapping, is just like underneath the table, tap the side of your thumb or your pointer finger.
Oh, I see. So with one finger, you tap the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just on the side of the nail for folks who can't see. And you can kind of hide this underneath there. This is another way to help calm the nervous system. And then remember your protocol. It's like, okay, what's the minimum here that I prepared? Is there a way for you to contribute and take the conversation somewhere else so that you can to email maybe? Mm-hmm. Like I have more, I have thoughts, I have things I want to share, but I need to digest. And some of that, like if you say that the first time, it might feel really hard and awkward, right? But the thing is that oftentimes your colleagues and your supervisors, they don't know what you need, right? They don't know how you work best. And so by demonstrating that, then you increase the likelihood that in the future, people who are responsive, they'll understand and know like, oh, what to expect. Because if you say 10 times that, hey, like I'm going to digest this and I'll get back to you with an email, soon people will just start expecting that's your go-to. Yeah. You're
creating the conditions within your environment to train people on like your protocol, essentially.
Yeah.
So since overthinking is something that the introvert is highly skilled at, where will they draw the line in this protocol, like for the prior to the meeting, right? Like your mind can only think of so many scenarios. So how do you kind of help them narrow it down to be like, okay, I'm going to socialize. Let's create a general protocol for socializing that makes me feel confident before I go in. So they check in with their thoughts. They're going to give themselves breaks if they can, physically, like space to do that. They're going to regulate their nervous system perhaps before the meeting. So like do some yoga, or like days before if you know it's coming, like a wedding or something that is planned ahead and you know. But for those phrases or those things, like maybe it's not, I'll get back to you, let me process this and I'll get back to you. If it's not work related in a social environment with friends, it might be a little bit less likely to think of like what scenarios could show up where I'm like, I have no idea what to say. Because my clients will say they just blank. They're incredibly intelligent and they'll be like, I have no idea what to say. It's like I lost knowledge of the language because I hadn't thought about it, or so how do we do this without overthinking the protocol?
Yeah. So with the protocol, I would say you have a maximum of 3 things. Like we don't want to make it complicated. And whenever possible, try to get like one-on-ones or be in smaller groups.
Right.
And if you're in a large group, you can sometimes just pretty much just give yourself a pass. Like, okay, like I don't even need to contribute here. It's fine. But in that moment that you have that blank, like people are all looking at you and you have no idea what to say, like just kind of just like, it's like, just love yourself. Like, here you are. Like, it's hard. You're an introvert. It's, and allow it to happen without making it a big deal, because it'll probably happen and it doesn't have to be a big deal. No one else really cares, just you.
Right. So say whatever came to your mind and then just be okay with it. Don't then just be hard on yourself, like as if I gave this stupid because that's what I see my clients after, just beating themselves up because they're like,
it's the after part. Yeah.
The plant was green. That's all that came up in my mind. I'm like, so who cares? I think who cares, but they care. That's the problem.
Yeah. And so from that, you can you can either just accept, you can keep beating yourself up. You can just accept yourself and say, hey, it's going to happen. Or maybe you can use that to create a protocol so that the next time you have something to try, without the expectation that the next time you're going to get it perfect and you've solved the problem forever.
Love it. Okay. So protocol prior, if you know the event is coming, I really do love, I was listening to Tony Robbins' talk a few days ago, and he said one of the top 10 skills, actually he said as a top 3, to have that successful people have is preparation. And so this wouldn't be any different. If you already know who you are and what conditions kind of trigger you, to have some preparation for the meeting, for the wedding, for the socializing, it's not crazy. It will help you successfully go through it, feeling like I've run through this scenario and I kind of know what I'm doing. I love that. What about after? So I always give this example to my clients because although I'm an extrovert, I'm highly, highly sensitive. So I feel in some ways as I imagine introverts might feel, sounds, emotions, all of that. I feel it. That's one of my superpowers, is to feel. And so when I give talks, as a public speaker, sometimes I give talks at places that, in my opinion, are very, very emotional, like bereavement groups for parents. And I can't think literally of anything harder to witness, right, than parents being in pain because they've lost their children. I already know the kind of preparation I, as an extrovert, have to do to get there, and also what I need after and during. And so during, I give myself permission to cry because I feel. So I absolutely tell myself it's totally okay for you to, my hand is always on my chest and I'm just crying as they're describing their child, their angel. I would always cry at that moment, and I give myself permission. And if I'm talking or teaching and I get watery or emotional, I give myself permission. And I also know it's draining. As happy as I feel that I've provided service to this group, I know for a fact I cannot work the rest of the day. I give myself that, and I have a plan to watch something funny or maybe go for a walk in nature, and whatever helps me process. So I wanted to say that because as an extrovert, people might think we do. We still have especially if you're sensitive like I am. So what is the aftercare of having been drained? Because do you normalize the drainage for an introvert? This is taxing.
So, and it's so interesting that this is something we need to normalize too. I think in our culture, we have this idea that we need to be going at full speed the whole time. And in reality, we have an ebb and flow. Everything has a rhythm to it. And so when you have big, you're outputting a lot of energy, whether that's physical or emotional, to balance it out, ideally you have these moments of less energy and less output. So for example, last week I put on an event. I interviewed, I was on the news. Then the next day I had a booth at this big symposium, and it was a lot of introvert output energy. And thankfully, I scheduled the rest of the week, very little. This week, it's very, very little. Haven't gone to any networking events. Some of the things that I would normally do, I haven't. And I've been more allowing of myself to like listen to my energy and maybe stay in bed a little bit longer and just be a bit quieter because and now it's been about a week since the last thing, and I'm starting to feel like just naturally the energy coming back and the desire to go out and do things, so I don't have to like push myself back into it. So things that you can do, it's essentially like, how can you reduce your energy output? How can you reduce the stimulation? How can you nourish yourself? And we all, most of us have a lot of self-care practices that like, that's the perfect time to go get a massage, get some acupuncture, connect with like a good friend, or spend extra time with your cat.
I was listening to you talk, and when you said a massage, I was like, that wouldn't be my. I don't like it. No, thank you. I'll pass. But it also, you remind me of our coach. So for those of you listening, how we met is in the same coaching program. And I was so shocked to hear our coach said that she was an introvert. Do you recall this?
Yes.
I was like,
yeah, I know.
Because she hosts these massive events. She talks to she's coaching in a group with 178 coaches. And I was like, wait, what? So I think, but she talks about this. She talks about like after an event, she gives herself like, she can't function ever again. Like not ever again, but like for the rest of the week, she's out. She's doing something else. And I as an extrovert, I would still feel like, yes, some events are like, whew, taxing energetically, and it's our ability to understand our needs and then come through with what we need. But my point about her is that as an outsider, maybe we can just finish the podcast with how to support our friends who are introverts. Like, how do we as extroverts have like this expectation that everybody should have fun at social gatherings, and like, why can I see you as often as I want to? But my epiphany with Stacey, our coach, being an introvert, when I thought she was an extrovert, did you feel a little bit shocked with that information?
Yes, absolutely. I was actually just thinking about that yesterday. It still amazes me.
It's amazing. But what I think is amazing is how much she's allowed herself, whatever it is that she needs prior, during, and after, that allows her to then give so much of herself into like public events.
Yeah.
And I
really
think that's the gift.
Increase her capacity too.
Right.
And I think that's a really important thing to note, is that like when we do this, when we take care of ourselves in this way, we increase our capacity to do more.
Mm-hmm. Because we already know like this protocol is a great idea. You just know, I can do it. I'm just going to need these things around me. Like when I do the parenting talks at bereavement, like I can do it. I just know what I need to support myself to be able to do it. And the more I give myself that, the more I support myself in being able to keep it up.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll be the downside, is like, if you don't support yourself, you'll eventually never socialize ever again. And we're social beings, whether we like it or not. We need those connections. So let's start it a little bit, because I also have a really dear, close friend of mine who's an introvert. And I know she said it to me, she loves me because I understand her, And so even though we're complete opposites of like, if it was up to me, I'll be seeing her every weekend, we'll be doing this. She's like, whoa, once every 2 months, like once a month, like she has a different pace. And I know to not take things personally, and I know her personality, and I know I'm going to have to reach out 6 times where then there is going to be a no. And then when I'm lucky, there is a yes, and I take it, and I'm so excited. Like I think this is what she says. I get her. Everybody else gives up on her. Just like, oh my God, she never wants to do anything. You have to ask her. I tend to understand that. And I just think that many of us might be missing on great friendships because we don't understand our friend is not meaning to be mean. Any thoughts you might have for all of us extroverts when we notice that we might have friends that are introverts? They still love us very much, but they might just...
Yeah. So, like noticing, like as an extrovert, if like what you need from a relationship, oftentimes with your extrovert friends, like just noticing what that is, and not having that same expectation for your introverts. So, introverts, like you've experienced, like oftentimes they don't feel ready to go do things, but it doesn't mean that they don't want to. So having that understanding of like my introvert friend, they need there'll be special moments where we'll connect and it's going to be amazing. Like one-on-one, our time together, once every 2 months, and letting that be okay. And then also in between, not necessarily like you can like not necessarily be in touch, but sometimes just sending something out to like as an extrovert, you might want to be communicating more. So feel free to do that without having expectations, or like honestly not having expectations that they're going to respond, but just you expressing like how you're thinking of them, sending them an emoji or something like that. And then when you do social events, like have a party, maybe trying to find ways for like your introvert friend could come help you set up before everyone gets there, or you could have them tell them to come at the end. And so when there's less people, and just like really thinking of like, how can I include them in a way that they're going to feel comfortable in this, and then maybe allow them to not come, and you do something like have brunch in the morning instead.
I think you brought a great point, which is the not have expectations. So one of the teachings I teach within my Reset program is to let go of expectations in general in life, because they always lead to disappointment. And I think you just nailed it as to why my friendship with my friend has been for so many years. I've seen so many of our friends just drop her. I value her so much. I think she's so much fun, and she adds so much to my life for those precious moments that we have one-on-ones. And I think it's because I literally never feel disappointed. If she says no, I might have a moment of like, that sucks. I would love to do that with her, or like her husband, and like our kids are the same age. Like sometimes I just like want that. So I allow myself to feel sad because I feel sad. It would be nice if they could join us, but then I immediately understand it. And so I don't carry with me this constant disappointment about my friend and how I expect her to be. And I think that's such a key point for anybody listening. It's coming back to intention, right? Like I'd rather keep this friendship. That's what matters to me, versus keeping these expectations on her behaving how I would, or how I want her to be.
Yeah, requiring her to behave a certain way.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is been what's been happening in our community anyways. And so to show up differently and allow the introverts to exist the way they are, and just normalize that.
Yeah.
From our perspective.
Yes.
It's been so nice having you in the show. Thank you so much. I know this will be incredibly helpful. I don't know when it's going to be released, probably in the summer. But I wanted to, while you're here, celebrate, because this is exciting that we had almost 10,000 downloads last month alone in the show.
Awesome.
So it's because of people like you showing up. So thank you so much. Like, I think the content gets better because more loving humans are like, hey, I want to talk in your podcast. And so I really wanted, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of everybody who's listening, to thank you for showing up and teaching us some of your gifts, because it's going to help more people. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Olga. It's been such an honor being here with you today.
So anybody who wants some confidence coaching, who is an introvert, head over to the show notes. We have all of the contact. Are you hanging out in Instagram, or not really?
I'm on Instagram a bit. My primary spot is Facebook. So
okay.
Anyone, you can become my friend.
Yes. Yeah, you need friends. There you go. So all of that will be provided to you guys in the show notes. Just keep scrolling down. And if you thought this episode, go ahead.
And I'm actually so excited. I am in the process of planning my own podcast called The Empowered Introvert.
Woo!
So that will be coming soon. And by the time this comes out, it's probably already out.
There. So okay, amazing. So make sure you send me that link before we can even link it here. Amazing. Oh, I got chills. This is so exciting. Podcast is fun. It's just a fun way of providing information and receiving information. So if you guys heard this episode, you thought it was helpful, maybe you think of somebody else, please share it with somebody else. And if you would love to jump into the Empowered Introvert podcast. Search for that. Maybe at the time that we're releasing this is already live. Download it and tell people about it. We need more empowering women. So let's do that as a community. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you next Monday.